Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Sermon Scraps. This week, as I shared, I was tempted to title it The Functional and Structural Aspects of the Image of God. Just we're going to walk through again, in summary fashion, what those things are. So, sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather here. So that's why I'm coming to you from my basement today. The functional is essentially the job that we carry out in the world. So that's honestly a lot of what Bill Gates talked about in his video. So we see this in Genesis 3 in the cultural mandate, but I think it also connects to some of our job today as we see in Jeremiah 29:7, where we're commanded to seek the welfare of the cities wherever God calls us. So what that means is we as Christians should be the best citizens of whatever country God sends us to. And as I've been studying and digging into this issue now for a while, it seems as though most people tend to emphasize this aspect, the functional aspect, when they talk about the image of God today. So it's generally connected to what we do or how we contribute to the world around us. So things like we build civilizations, we work on the land that we're near, we are thinking beings. Those are the kinds of things that are demonstrated in the functional aspect of the image of God. The second piece is the structural, and that is connected to the fact that God is the one that designed us. So since this is true, we have a unique relationship to the world itself. My dogs can't image God in the same way that we can. Trees can't image God in the world. They can and do point us to God, but humans are the only ones in the chosen creation that God used to image himself into the world. And this aspect seems to be underemphasized today in much of what I read. So God designed us very intentionally to reflect him to the world around us. And this is part of the reason I'm so passionate about regularly reminding us that God is the creator. So because God created us, he gets to determine how we live. The final piece, the third piece, is what we'll be looking at next week, the relational piece. So God created us to be in relationship with him and others, but sin has broken both of those relationships. We'll also see the sin of othering, that is looking down on other humans as like not treating them as a fellow image bearer, and then some of the implications toward violence that leads to. And it's fascinating to me because I hadn't made some of these connections in Genesis before until I was stretched and pushed on reading Genesis 4 from an othering lens. Now I want to take a minute here and remind us why I am going through this series right now, because it is a hotly contested discussion and conversation that is full of minefields and kind of heavy to walk through. And honestly, it's because I am convinced we need a better way to engage the racial conversations that our world is offering us today. So you're going to hear my kids running around above me right now. And so even as I say that, the racial conversation, there are some people I know who would say that race isn't in the Bible, so we shouldn't talk about it. Now, there's part that is partly right, because race isn't explicitly in the Bible. Race is a social construct generally used to try to marginalize or ostracize people. But ethnicities are all over the Bible, which means that we should be talking about the differences and the ways that God has created different cultures through people, the way that different languages have come together, and the way that all of that can bring honor and glory to God. So if you think of it, when God appears to Abraham, he says that Abraham's descendants will be a blessing to the entire world. When Jesus comes, he cuts through a lot of the ethnic divides in order to get to the heart of each individual that he's engaging with. And then when Jesus finally returns, people from every tribe, tongue, nation, and ethnicity will be represented. However, most of the people on the street that we talk to or engage with won't care about the distinction between ethnicity and race like that. So that's where I am comfortable referring to it as race, when you have that background in mind. That the Bible doesn't explicitly use the word race, it uses the term ethnicity. I am comfortable using race because that's what my neighbor down the street that we have conversations with would understand and comprehend as we engage this issue. The other piece to mention is I'm not interested in pushing diversity just for the sake of diversity, because John Piper has said, hell is just as diverse as heaven is. So it's not diversity for the sake of diversity, but the gospel controls or compels us to try to break down some of these cultural barriers that the world uses to try to distinguish or separate or other different groups. Christianity is the only religion that actually allows and encourages people to be, every person, regardless of any differences, to be treated with dignity, honor, and respect. But lastly, I just want to remind us, the last 2 years should have been enough for us to understand and to demonstrate to us that we need some new and different ways of engaging this issue. And it begins with understanding who we are and why we're prone to marginalize people. Now, with that background said, I would ask you to please be praying. Personally, for me, as we go through this series, I've really been feeling the weight and the burden of it for the last 6+ months. So, like last night, I didn't sleep at all and woke up, or maybe more accurately said, I just got out of bed, not feeling great. And I'm not sure if it's my body being too tired, the mental weight of trying to walk through this issue, or spiritual attack. But I would ask for prayer through this whole series, that it would actually unite us instead of divide us, because that's what Satan would like to do, is to try to use opportunities and conversations like this to divide rather than to unite. Last thing, I'm just want to remind you, don't forget that next week at 9 a.m. I'll be upstairs in room 256 if anyone wants to talk or engage or dialogue about these issues further. Thank you for your prayers, and honestly, I'm really looking forward to continuing to walk through this series with you. See you, Lord willing, next week.